So I'm a tax lawyer in Calgary. I do both litigation and tax planning. My practice involves mostly the planning side, where we do private company restructuring, public company transactional work, inbound and outbound investments into Canada and out of Canada. Well, I took corp tax in law school, and I found the restructuring side of that course to be really interesting. I love the idea of being able to make small changes or large changes to a deal structure and be able to come up with tangible value for my clients by making those changes. So in the real world, clients come to us at the very beginning of a transaction, and they say, hey, look, we're looking at acquiring a target, or we're looking at selling off this business. And the beautiful thing about being a tax lawyer is that you're able to look at that transaction and say, hey, look, if we make this change over here, we might be able to save you X number of dollars, either today or down the road when you go and dispose of a different asset. So it's one of the few areas of the law where you get to get involved in the actual structuring of the deal and actually be able to show the client tangible value for the work you've done. Actually, we have a fantastic deal going on right now where the Dentons international structure has become incredibly valuable. So what we have is a Chinese purchaser that is acquiring a Canadian target. And the Canadian target has assets all across Canada, across the US, in Africa, and in South America. And so when the client contacted me to discuss this transaction, we immediately got on the phone with our Chinese office, because we recently merged with Dasheng. And so we were able to get their advice right up front as to how to deal with this from a Chinese standpoint. And then once we moved past that part of the transaction, we got into the meat of the transaction. We needed investment advice and competition advice out of our lawyers in Edmonton. We needed regulatory advice out of lawyers in the US. And most recently, we've started to talk to some of our lawyers in Africa to assist us in dealing with some of the transitional issues over there. I'm involved in a group called 100 Men Who Give a Damn. We are the male version of a female group that started about 4 months before us, called 100 Women Who Care. When we learned about their group, we thought this was just an absolutely fabulous idea and an absolutely amazing way to give back to the community. So while I was not a founder, I was at the very first meeting, and I got involved after attending that meeting because I was so moved by what we were able to do. So this particular group, what happens is a group of men from Calgary get together, and we learn about local charities, and we at the end of the meeting, we all vote on which one we think we should give our money to, and we all write a check for $100. So in our first year, we donated over $40,000 to local charities in Calgary, and this year it's our second year, so we're about halfway through. We're on pace for $60,000. Our objective is to get over $100,000 a year in donations to local charities. Tax is a very complex area of the law, and so the skill set that I bring is an ability to communicate in a manner that my clients can understand. So that's both written and oral communication, because we often have to write opinions, and we often have to communicate with clients and explain very complex tax issues in email format, which of course they'll then store and use later. So the ability to write effectively and the ability to communicate orally is very important. So from an oral standpoint, you need to evaluate the person you're communicating with, because we deal with tax planners, tax advisors, but we also deal with business owners that don't really have any background in tax. So when you're dealing with someone that doesn't have background in tax, you need to understand what their tax level is, what their interest in even learning more about tax is. And that way you can filter out your explanation to be at the right level for them. So I pride myself sort of as being the guy in our office who can translate tax into English. The biggest mentor I've had over the duration of my career is Jahed Haymore. And Jahed practices, Jahed he's a fabulous tax litigator. He's at the top of the profession, but he's the most down-to-earth individual you'll ever meet. People love him, whether it's his coworkers, whether it's the associates, articling students, and clients. And so what I learned from Jahed was that fundamentally, even though there are a million ways to make a lawyer, it's all about people and it's all about relationships. And so I asked myself at one point, how is it that Jahed is able to turn a client into a friend? And over time, what I've realized is actually he's not turning clients into friends, he's turning relationships into friends and friends into clients. And by establishing that friendship early and that relationship early, and he does it by showing that he cares about them, about their families, about their business issues, they eventually learn to trust him, they come to rely on him. And when the time comes for them to actually send him work, they're confident he's going to do a great job. And that relationship's so strong that nobody could ever pull it away from him.